feel I can talk to you this way a little more easily. Peace is possible. Wow, what a tough issue that you've asked me to address today. And I want to come back around to talking about the role of Rotary in peace. But let me start from a little bit different direction. There's a rumor going around. I know you've all heard it before. It's an ugly rumor. That rumor is that the United States of America, doesn't care about the rest of the world. We're the last remaining superpower, and damn it, we'll do things our way. The United States is arrogant. The United States knows better. The United States will have its way. Maybe some of you even believe that rumor. Maybe some of you actually believe that the United States is prepared to go it alone, and that we are the world's policemen, and that we alone can bring about peace or prosperity in the world by ourselves. Some of you may believe that the United States is arrogant. Let's look at the problems around the world. The problems that we as an international community are trying to address. Well, some problems are obviously ones that the United States cannot solve alone. They're obvious. Terrorism, for example. We can wish terrorism away in the United States, but if we're going to win the war against terrorism around the world, the United States can't solve this problem by itself. In fact, we need cooperation from other countries, right? There are other issues that are obviously issues that we can't resolve ourselves. Climate change, for example. As much as we might want to resolve issues of hydrocarbons in the United States, even if we were to resolve the issue in the United States, there would still be a problem of climate change in the world. In fact, if we're going to be successful in addressing climate change, we're going to need the cooperation of a lot of other countries. There are other issues, and you can imagine what they are. Refugees or health care. We just celebrated World AIDS Day. If we're going to be successful in addressing health issues around the world, it's not the United States that's going to fix that problem. In fact, we're only going to be successful, right, if we have cooperation from other countries. You say, okay, Mr. Ambassador, you've chosen a few examples of where we need cooperation, but aren't so many issues around the world really bilateral ones? Look at what the United States did in Iraq. It intervened in Iraq without the help of very many other countries. Or look what's going on in Afghanistan. Let's take a look at a few examples around the world. You know, it used to be that diplomacy was all about embassies, bilateral embassies. I'm the ambassador to Bulgaria. There's an ambassador sitting in Paris and London. Diplomatic relations and foreign affairs used to be, still is, about bilateral relations. We're going to fix the problem that we have with Germany or Russia. We'll fix it. We'll fix it. We'll work on it. That's why we have an ambassador in Moscow. We'll work on those issues. Well, let's look around at the real tough issues and how are we going to address them. Let's take one of the hardest issues, Iran. There's no question that Iran is enriching uranium ultimately to develop a nuclear capability. I don't think there's any disagreement about that around the world. Well, what are we going to do about it? Well, the United States has had sanctions in place against Iran for more than 2 decades. How successful have they been? I'm afraid to say not very. Iran continues to enrich uranium with the ultimate goal of developing a nuclear capability. But what are we going to do about it? Well, the United States is not going to fix this issue by itself. The way that we are going to influence Iran is not by the voice of the last remaining superpower. It's going to be through the voice of the international community. It's going to be when enough countries say, Iran, we can't accept what you're doing. It's in violation of international law. Your threats are not acceptable to the international community. And look, we already see some evidence of this. No, we haven't been successful in defeating the nuclear program of Iran, but in fact we have been successful at the United Nations. A variety of countries within the Security Council, including China and Russia, have agreed that this behavior on Iran's part is unacceptable. And I believe that that does have an influence. The more countries that are prepared to speak up and to act together, the more likely we are to see successful results. You can take a look around at other issues around the world. Let's say Sudan. Well, it's almost inconceivable to me that anyone in the world today can accept the genocide that is taking place in Sudan. Well, millions of innocent people, women, children, have been killed in Iran over time. And it is in fact genocide. What are we going to do about it? Well, the United States could send in its military forces and probably be successful in bringing about peace in that country. But, you know, I don't think that's going to happen. Europe, NATO, I suppose, could do the same thing. I don't think it's going to happen. So how are we going to be successful in addressing the problem of genocide in Sudan and a dictator like President Bashir who's prepared to sacrifice his own people? Well, my contention here is it's not going to be for the U.S. alone. It's not even going to be for Europe. It's going to be through the actions of the international community, through the voice of the international community and the actions that we are prepared to take collectively. North Korea. Burma. Let's say Burma. Here we have a country that, you remember the tsunami that took place. When was that? 2 years ago or so. And, the tsunami, we didn't hear a lot about Burma, but in fact, the country was ravaged by that tidal wave that overcame the country, the southern 1/3 of the country. Well, generous people that we are, many of our countries, offered international assistance to help the victims in southern Burma. We offered water, food, medical care. None of that got in. Why? Because the government of Burma said, no, we don't need it. And what happened? Thousands of people. We don't even know how many people died. It didn't make the news because no journalists were allowed to get in to see it. Okay. How are we going to fix this problem? How are we going to address this problem? Well, I contend to you again, it's not through actions on the part of the United States or Europe or any one of our countries. It's going to be collective. It's going to be the voice of the international community acting collectively that will, in fact, bring about change in Burma. I could go on with examples like this. This is a world where we're going to have to look at problems differently. We're going to have to not look at, okay, James Warlick is the ambassador to Bulgaria, and he will address the problems with the government of Bulgaria. Yes, well, that's true. But how are we really going to address the toughest issues? Middle East peace, proliferation of nuclear weapons, terrorism, rogue states. It's going to be collectively. It's going to be by building new coalitions, by working with countries that maybe we haven't worked with before. It might be through the United Nations or NATO or APEC or the Organization of American States, yes, but it's also going to be mean finding new allies, working with countries that we haven't worked with before, building coalitions, and speaking with one voice from the international community. Why am I telling you this? Well, I think this is what Rotary is actually all about. And this kind of meeting is exactly what I'm talking about. It's not about one country any longer. It's not about bilateral relations. The world has become smaller. And in fact, we are interdependent on one another. And it's meetings like this, it's this kind of people-to-people contact. It's the kind of conversations that you're having where we can address common problems. I'm not suggesting today that you're going to go collectively out and address the problems of terrorism or global AIDS or world hunger. No. But it's organizations like Rotary that are going to make the difference in the future. We are living in a smaller world. We are all interconnected. Coming together for all of you this way, in this kind of a group, is a part of a larger picture that we do need to speak as an international community with one voice. So I want to thank you all for coming, first of all, to Bulgaria, but more importantly, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to do what I think is really the kind of diplomacy that we're going to need in the future. It's not about governments. It's not about bilateral ambassadors. In fact, it is about the international community. It's about people to people who care about the world that we live in. And the work that you're doing here and the work that you're doing in your homes is important. It is important for that goal. So thank you all for coming, and it's really a pleasure.